Episode 2 of Furious starts with Alice trying to get into the shower before work, but backing out after being triggered. At the same time, Oliver prepares to leave for work and thanks Jinny for the night before, asking her to leave a copy of the NDA behind. Jinny reads through the document and suggests that she become someone he owns, asking if she can stay at his apartment while he is away. Although Oliver is unsure at first, Jinny convinces him to lock her inside the apartment before teasing him. He gives in and orders her to clean the apartment naked, so he can watch her through the security cameras while at work. Meanwhile, Alice discusses the connection between Adrian and Caleb's murders with Danny. She brings up the woman with the poppy tattoo, but Danny insists they need stronger evidence before linking the two cases, especially given Caleb's wealthy background. He then tries to change the subject by asking about Amy's engagement party, but Alice refuses to discuss it. At the FBI office, Mason asks Alice to prepare a report on Caleb's murder investigation and reprimands her for going behind his back to involve herself in the case. Elsewhere, Oliver receives a notification about movement inside his apartment and eagerly watches Jinny cleaning the place naked through the security cameras. Later that night, he returns home and attempts to sleep with her. However, when he notices the poppy tattoo on her body, Jinny panics and hides in the bathroom. Nora reviews Alice's report and points out that the only evidence connecting the two murders is a blurry CCTV image of a poppy tattoo from 14 years ago. She questions why Alice has not interrogated Tim Baker, the police officer who handled Adrian's case. Alice and Nora meet Tim, who recalls Adrian claiming that the teenage girl involved was his daughter. He adds that the girl confirmed the story at the time. Nora accuses Tim and the other officers of frequenting Adrian's massage parlors, which operated under the guise of lounges. Alice asks whether Tim ever verified Adrian's claim, but he says he cannot remember. After he leaves, Alice confronts Nora about withholding information regarding the massage parlor. Nora admits she has difficulty trusting Alice because of her background as a former police officer before walking away. Danny later asks Alice to meet him after work. Meanwhile, Oliver notices Jinny has left the apartment and begins texting her. Jinny shows the messages to Becky, the receptionist at the shelter where she is staying, implying that Oliver is her abusive partner who is trying to control her. Becky advises her to cut off contact with him, but Jinny instead demands the drugs Becky confiscated earlier. When Becky refuses, Jinny threatens to expose an intimate photo of them together to Becky's girlfriend. She then hands Becky a list of supplies she needs before returning to Oliver's house that night. There, Oliver questions whether Jinny is even her real name and accuses her of lying to him. Jinny suddenly injects him with drugs, causing him to lose consciousness. As he begins passing out, she reveals that they met years ago at a party when she was only 15 years old and that Oliver paid to have sex with her. Horrified, Oliver realizes exactly who she is before blacking out. Later that night, Alice once again fails to gather the courage to shower. She heads to the club where Danny asked to meet her, but unexpectedly runs into her ex-boyfriend, Marshall. Disturbed, she leaves and returns to the FBI office, where she reviews the CCTV footage alone. Alice concludes that the girl with the poppy tattoo had blonde hair. While going through old case files, she discovers that 3 confidential informants received plea deals following the raid on the lounge. She asks Nora to identify them, wondering whether Caleb was one of the informants. Nora admits she has been unable to uncover their identities. Desperate to earn Nora's trust, Alice reveals that she was fired after reporting Marshall to her lieutenant for assaulting her. She explains that she empathizes with the victims because so many men who abused minors were never held accountable. Convinced by Alice's honesty, Nora agrees to help her gain access to more information about the massage parlor investigation. At the same time, Becky calls Jinny while she prepares lunch inside Oliver's house. Becky tells her she could not find the wig she wanted, frustrating Jinny. When Oliver regains consciousness and crawls toward the kitchen to attack her, Jinny forces him back into bed and drugs him again. Moments later, Oliver's daughter, Mira, unexpectedly arrives at the house. The next day, Danny takes Alice to the Easton residence to speak with Caleb's sister. He apologizes for inviting her to the bar where Marshall was present and points out that she smells of sweat because she has been avoiding showers, giving her a bottle of cologne. During the interview, Caleb's sister reveals that Caleb had been dating a woman who had recently escaped an abusive relationship. Alice then asks why Caleb, a former lawyer, left the bench in 2012, but the conversation is interrupted when Jay Easton arrives in a wheelchair. As the family tries to end the interview, Alice reveals that Caleb was starved and drugged to death by a woman before mentioning the candlelight lounge. Jay immediately orders them to leave. Outside, Danny criticizes Alice for taking over the interview and accuses her of implying that officers like him and Tim Baker accepted sexual favors from teenage girls. Despite her objections, he later brings her to Amy's engagement party, where Amy attempts to reconnect with her sister. Meanwhile, Jinny tells Mira that Oliver is unwell. During their conversation, Mira mentions wanting to cut her hair, but says her father refused to let her do so because guys like long hair. The comment visibly triggers Jinny. She pours them both wine, secretly destroys Myra's phone by placing it in the oven, and helps curl her hair. Jinny then asks whether Mira has ever had sex before revealing that she herself had a lot of sex at Myra's age. She deliberately burns her own fingers with a curling wand and tells Mira she suffered a similar injury as a teenager. At the engagement party, Danny privately asks Alice why she never pursued legal action against Marshall. Upset, Alice walks onto the dance floor. Amy later tells Danny that Marshall used to drag Alice out of the shower and beat her. She recalls finding Alice unconscious in the running shower before taking her home. Feeling guilty, Danny apologizes that night and offers to sit outside the bathroom while Alice showers so she feels safe. With his support, Alice finally manages to step into the shower. That same night, Jinny confronts Oliver after he wakes up. She recounts the night he abused her, reminding him that another underage girl was present. She recalls him complimenting her hair and handing her a glass of water before assaulting her. Oliver insists he never knew she was underage and begs her to spare Mira. Jinny ignores his pleas and drugs him once again. The following morning, Alice wakes to find Danny in her living room just as Nora arrives with the identities of the 3 confidential informants. Caleb's name is not among them. Danny also reveals that investigators found only legal pornography on Caleb's computer, with nothing linking him to child abuse. Alice suddenly remembers a report about Caleb's stolen black Mercedes-Benz. After reviewing the CCTV footage again, she spots Adrian getting out of the vehicle. Nora checks the file and discovers that Caleb's lawyer, Oliver Charles, reported the theft. The next morning, Mira wakes to discover that Jinny has destroyed every security camera in the house by baking them in the oven. Terrified, she searches for her father. Jinny tells her that Oliver is dead, prompting Mira to run into his bedroom. There, Jinny continues their conversation from the previous night, explaining how Emily Dickinson's wishes were ignored when her poetry was published after her death without her consent. She then reveals that Oliver assaulted her when she was the same age as Mira. Shocked, Mira asks Jinny to tell her exactly what Oliver did. The episode ends with a police officer arriving at the house for a welfare check, only to discover Oliver's dead body while Mira sits beside the bed with her hair chopped off. I am still trying to figure out the timeline of the story because something does not quite add up. It cannot be that Jinny murdered Adrian when she was 15 and then waited all these years before going after Caleb and Oliver. From what we have seen, it appears that she was rescued during the raid on the lounge in 2012, 14 years ago, when she was just 15 years old. Back then, Adrian likely stole Caleb's car and was reported by his lawyer, Oliver. It may be through this theft investigation that Oliver and Caleb got involved in hooking up with minors. It is also likely that Oliver is one of the 3 confidential informants, which could explain how he still got to keep his license as an attorney. Now, at 29, Jinny seems to have begun hunting down the men who abused her, which suggests that Adrian was likely one of her more recent victims. Danny clearly has feelings for Alice, and the show continues to hint at that through subtle moments. We already saw him keeping her hair tie in the previous episode, and here he goes out of his way to help her confront one of her biggest traumas. The scenes of Alice repeatedly trying and failing to step into the shower were incredibly difficult to watch, making it all the more satisfying to see her finally overcome that fear with Danny quietly supporting her from the other side of the door. What frustrates me, however, is that no one seemed willing to stand up for Alice when she reported Marshall's abuse. Danny may be trying to support her now, but he failed her when she needed it most. I remember being excited when Marshall first appeared because he is played by Jake Lacey, whom I recognized as Pete from The Office. That excitement disappeared almost immediately after learning what Marshall had done to Alice. I hope we get to learn more about Alice's story throughout this investigation.